Hi everyone, good afternoon, and welcome to the second session for Franchising 101 today. We hope you enjoyed the session earlier with Thomas and Robert sharing about how the legal aspects of franchising kind of are structured in Vietnam today. Up next, we have John from Heart of Darkness to share more about the practical aspects of running a business in Vietnam as well. And he's going to cover more about selecting the right local partners in Vietnam. A quick introduction about John. So, John is the founder and CEO of Heart of Darkness, a brewery based in Saigon, Vietnam, with flagship stores in Saigon and Singapore. Heart of Darkness distributes their award winning beer across most of the region. In 2013, IKEA brought him to Vietnam as the deputy trading area responsible for the Vietnam sourcing operation, also managing categories across Southeast Asia. During a stint as a sourcing operations manager in New York City in the late 90s, John developed a love for the nascent craft beer scene in the US. Frustrated at not being able to find craft beer in Asia, John taught himself to brew, and soon after the Heart of Darkness was born. Heart of Darkness is on a mission to bring innovative, high quality craft beer to Asia and create a chain of taprooms that brings an authentic US craft beer experience to Asia. Over to you, John.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Okay, so I'm just going to walk you through our experience in Vietnam. As part of it, we'll be picking the right partners, and then just some of the things we've learned along the way that having the right partners can teach you and help you sort of stay out of trouble. So we are Vietnam's most awarded craft brewery, one of the top 3 big craft breweries here. We export all over Asia to 9 different countries. We're actually headquartered in Singapore, and that's an important thing for people investing in here to understand that structure. It's a lot easier to trade from a Singaporean point of view than from a Vietnamese legal point of view. So that's why we set that up. So everything else comes underneath that Singapore structure. Our brewery here is a foreign-owned enterprise, a wholly foreign-owned enterprise. The only actual craft brewery that is a wholly owned foreign enterprise with ministerial approval up to 49 million litres a year. Not an easy thing to get, but something that does also help protect us a lot and give us a lot of freedom to operate within the country. As Ishan said, we have a flagship tap room here in District 1, where we have 20 different taps. And the whole idea of this, and we'll touch on this later, is the experiential part of what we do. So we're here to bring the Vietnamese experience, and part of that for me was to bring the world of craft beer to Vietnam. So we have 20 of our own beers on tap at any given time so that people can really explore what craft beer is. We also have a tap room of our own down in Singapore, in Keong Saik, 25 taps there. Again, that's 20 of our own taps, and then we have 5 guest taps for local craft breweries that we like and respect, and international craft breweries for tap takeovers and fun stuff like that. Like I said, we distribute to 9 different countries, and our simple mission here is to be Asia's premier craft brewery. It's a hard one to define that, but we'll know it when we hit it. And then we just want to put tap rooms into every single major city in Asia over the next 3 years. COVID slowed that down over the last couple of years, obviously, but we'll pick that up again next year. So why did we choose Vietnam? I've been coming to Vietnam managing businesses here for the best part of, I guess, 13 years now. I used to run an office here from China. I fell in love with Vietnam. I fell in love with the city, the country, the people. It's just a wonderful place. And when I left China, I was contemplating doing a craft brewery, but then IKEA brought me here. And the thing that stopped me when I got here initially was finding the right partners, but we'll touch on that again later. And more about how you actually do business here in Vietnam. I'm not concerned about setting up organizations. I've done that for the best part of 30 years, but it's how you operate in Vietnam. This is a very special place to be. But from the perspective of can we make a craft brewery fly? Back then, it was very early on in the craft beer scene here. There were a few breweries that opened up, and I met my business partner, Andrew, who'd been here. He's an Australian who'd been here for the best part of 15 years at that point. So he really understood the local landscape, and he brought on our Vietnamese partner, Tu, who one of the smartest business people I know, regardless of nationality, just an incredibly smart guy. He's now the CEO of Dentsu here. So, a sharp businessman. So the three of us set up the Heart of Darkness. And why we felt that we could do something special with the Heart of Darkness is the Vietnamese have this wonderful, very honest, very pure curiosity for everything. They're not closed-minded at all. They just want to experience as many different things as they can. And it's a very dynamic country with a very young population. So, and it's also the world, Asia's biggest beer consuming market. It's actually Heineken's biggest beer consuming market globally. And I think that a lot of that's to do with how social they are. I mean, if you walk around Saigon at night, you'll see people just gathered sitting in groups on mats on the ground, drinking tea, hanging out, eating snacks. It's very much how the Vietnamese love to spend their time, just with their friends, drinking tea, drinking beers, just eating snacks. It's just the way that the Vietnamese love to be. So that made us realize that, so you've got the biggest beer consuming market, you've got a very young market, and craft beer targets 25 to 35-year-olds. And then you've got a very social market as well, with a very rapid growing middle class, disposable income, and this wonderful dynamic energy for growth. So they're just embracing everything new. So I think the trick there is to play into that and to provide the experience that people are looking for. Hang on a sec, where's my next one? Hold on, sorry. Yeah, so the experiential thing is really, really important. So before COVID, one of the most appealing things of Saigon, and one of the things that you do most of in Saigon, is F&B. It had the most beautiful, vibrant F&B scene, lots of old colonial buildings converted into stunning restaurants. The Vietnamese got a fantastic eye for design. So you see all these very eclectic, beautiful venues. And it's like two tiers. So like Vietnamese food itself is very bright, very vibrant, very fresh. And the Vietnamese are super proud of their food. So I think the F&B grows from that. So you have fantastic cheap street food of very high quality, which is very, very cheap. But then you go up to Western food, which actually isn't that expensive by international standards, but is expensive locally. So you're not going to get, you're going to get your middle classes hanging out there. But not the rest of the public. So that's who you've got to target, and you've got to target them with the experience. They don't mind spending the money if you're going to give them something very special. But sadly, COVID just smashed that. We lost about 30% of the legal businesses, which probably in reality means we lost about 60% of our F&B operations, because a lot of the smaller mom and pop operations weren't really legal. And if you walk around like District 1 now, which is the heart of the tourism area, it just got destroyed. I mean, literally 3 out of every 4 stores are closed right now on Hai Ba Jung, which is the main drag, the main tourist drag. And we also, this picture down at the bottom is actually one of the most heartbreaking pictures for me from the lockdown. This is people trying to leave Vietnam, or leave Saigon, sorry, at the stroke of midnight when they lifted the curfew and they lifted all the restrictions and the lockdown. So this is a sign of the suffering of people just like fled the city. I think we lost about a quarter of the city's population in the space of 2 weeks. So that really hit F&B hard. We just couldn't get wait staff, we couldn't get staff, period. But thankfully, this is an incredibly resilient nation. And it's already bouncing back. We're already seeing new venues opening up. We're seeing consumer confidence come back. Before Christmas, like November, December, we were probably just 25% off pre-COVID numbers. And then after Christmas as well, up to Tet was fantastic. And then we got hit with Omicron. Everything slowed down again, but mainly people sick. I didn't see a slowdown in people coming to the bars. I mean, we lost some business because people were sick, but people weren't scared. So the confidence is there again. and the willingness to move on is there again. So I think right now is actually a really good time if you're looking to invest into F&B in Vietnam. I think it's an excellent time to do it because there's so much good prime real estate locations out there for F&B. Don't expect rental deals. The landlords managed to hold on to the prices. They refuse to drop them, and seems to be working. We'll see what happens if people start flooding in and there's a lot of people vying for them. See if we get a bit of a demand pushing down the pricing a bit, but I wouldn't be expecting that myself. So this is the key for me, is build something, build an experience for the Vietnamese. Don't build it for expats. Expats are a tiny part of the market. Build it for the Vietnamese. So give them a full experience. If you want to bring a Singaporean restaurant into Vietnam, what does that look like? What makes a Singaporean restaurant special in Singapore? What will attract the Vietnamese to come and want to spend money at a venue that, like I said, will be more expensive than their local food? So you've got to give them an experience to come for. And remember, you've still got to build it around, well, Singaporean food would anyway, you still got to build it around sharing, that very social dining experience, so that people will come with their friends and share and enjoy with their friends. So you've got to also be careful with your marketing. Be sure to be targeting the right market. Get good marketing advice. We find when our marketing is on point, our business rocks. If we drop the ball on our marketing and we're not focused on it, we drop our business, and we can see it in real time. So do get people that understand the market and understand local buying habits, consumer habits, and how you target those people. Get them on, like 70% of this country is on Facebook. So having a really strong social media presence is incredibly important. Okay. But it's not all wonderful. There are downsides to it. So here's a little cautionary tale. And this is what a little bit about why you've got to have the right partners. So I'm an old trader, many years in China. And in China, I'm very used to, if you don't get what you want, you don't pay until you get what you want. And the Chinese always understood that. So I got here, and I've done a lot of furniture in my time, having headed up IKEA here. I know a thing or two about wood. So when we got this furniture for our bar, so what you're looking at here, the stuff that looks like firewood on the left, is actually furniture that was delivered to my second bar here in Vietnam. And when it came, I took a look at it, and I could tell that the wood was really moist, that it hadn't been treated properly. There were a whole bunch of issues with it. So I wrote up a very technical email, rejected the shipment, asked the contractor to take it away and replace it. He never did. I kept chasing him. He didn't do it. I kept chasing. He didn't do it. That bar sadly went under, and we closed it. And then about a year later, I get a letter from his lawyers suing us, not suing the subcontractor that had made this terrible furniture, but suing us to pay for what you see on the left-hand side of the screen. And I thought, well, no problem. I've got documented evidence that I rejected this. Everything's fine. Take me to court if you want to take me to court. I can't see how any court in the land is going to come after me as the injured party for this quality of product. I was wrong. The email is not legal evidence. And if you want it to be legal evidence, you have to physically mail it. So my most compelling piece of evidence to say that I'd rejected this product actually wasn't admissible in court. So I've got no leg to stand on, and we're still fighting this right now, even though it's clear. I mean, you can see from the images, it's clear that we've got a major quality issue with this furniture. I mean, this is only like 2 years old, 2 or 3 years old at this stage. So that's a few things to be very, very wary about if you get into any sort of trouble here. Make sure you get solid legal advice. Make sure you've got partners that understand it and understand the local environment. I forgot to consult with my partner too on this, and I seriously regret that. Okay, so while Vietnam is an incredibly interesting and fun place to be and to do business, and it's not as scary as it seems, it is a lot of detail. So it is super important that you have local partners that understand that you've got to mail it, not email it, and just understand how to play the government's game here, because it's very complex. Vietnam's a hybrid of bureaucracy between the old French bureaucracy and then new socialist bureaucracy layered on top of that. And it's very, very complicated. So have people that understand it. And that goes to the accounting as well. I mean, most of us here are probably familiar with GAAP accounting, and that would be the principles that we understand when we're reading P&Ls and balance sheets and everything else. Vietnam has a completely different accounting standard. So for example, you can't depreciate certain amounts of product under $7,000. You can't depreciate it. You have to put it on the P&L in that month. So you get some really weird spikes and odd things in a Vietnamese P&L. So you need accountants that can convert Vietnamese accounting into GAAP for you to help run your business and operational reports and stuff. Get good local lawyers. We spent a lot of money on expat lawyers to begin with, and it was an absolute disaster. It nearly crashed the project into the ground. The minute we got local lawyers on board that knew how to play the game, were connected, had connections within the government organizations, could go up and talk to the right people, get the right doors open. They literally, our local lawyer, who's still our lawyer, literally pulled us out of the fire in the space of 2 hours, and we probably would have been dead. The project would have been dead by the end of the day if she hadn't done that. So I strongly, strongly recommend find a good, trustworthy local lawyer to work with. And do spend money on good services like Grant Thornton, and there's a bunch of other good expat accounting services here that you can work with and talk to that can support you and help you understand how to get it set up properly, how to structure your organization here, and then also do all of your reporting for you, double check all your tax reporting, because if you make any slight mistake here, coffee money will be required to fix it. So just make sure that you've got people that understand everything covering your back for you. Okay, that's my brief presentation, so I'll throw it open for questions now.
Thank you, John, for the insightful presentation. If anyone has questions for John, please feel free to type it in the Q&A box on the Zoom window here. We do have some questions to start off the discussion, and in the meanwhile, we can see what else the audience has. So, John, you touched on the importance of finding right partners.
Yeah.
And you gave the example of a furniture supplier. So, for someone who's looking to kind of get into F&B for the first time, how do they actually think about assessing the credibility of a partner? Given you built up your own brewery, you also had to develop your own supply chain, I assume.
I mean, there's a lot of speculation about the Vietnamese and corruption and everything else like that. I don't buy it. I think the world has the same amount of corruption everywhere and the same amount of issues, and people are just people. So at the end of the day, it's about spending time with your prospective partners and getting to know them and getting a comfort factor with them. I wouldn't take risks here. If you don't feel comfortable with that person, then don't go for it. But do spend time with them, do go out for dinner with them, go out for drinks with them, get to know them properly, get to know their friends and family as well if you can. That's what Tu and I did for a good few months before we signed on the dotted line and basically got married, right? Is to just spend a lot of time together and understand each other. And then over time, you're in business situations together, you can see how people are going to react and how they're going to respond. And that tells you a lot about people. But it's the same, I think it's the same rules apply as business everywhere at the end of the day.
Yeah, very well put, that people is what matters at the end of the day. And given you've worked across different continents and experienced different cultures as well, is there anything that stands out about the culture in Vietnam? And this is more from the lens of a foreign player who's looking to set up shop in Vietnam, or maybe find the right franchise partner, or even kind of looking to set up a local subsidiary there as well. Like culturally, are there things that people should be aware of or that you found interesting in your interaction?
I mean, it's Asia, so there's a lot of, face is very important here still. It's not talked about as much as it's talked about in China, for instance. But it's still very important. You still never want to put your local partners on the spot or make them lose face in any way at all. So always be culturally sensitive to that. There is still a slight Hanoi-Saigon divide. you don't see it on the surface, but it's still there. Something to be mindful of when you're dealing with, the North is different to the South and how you deal with them. North is a lot more akin to sort of Chinese culture, I think, in my experience. I hate to generalize, but that's just my experience as I've seen it here. Other than that, no, I find the Vietnamese to be probably one of the most open-minded culture in the region. Very, very progressive, very forward-thinking, very much embrace Western business practices and Western thinking, while still being true to their own culture. So I think as long as you're smart and you're respectful, there's not a lot to fear here at the end of the day.
Right, thank you. We do have a question from the audience. It's an anonymous attendee, unfortunately, so I can't give a shout out to them. But their question is, how do preferences and tastes between HOD beer and local Viet beer differ or converge?
Well, it's totally different, right? So Heart of Darkness, we're here to bring American craft beer to Vietnam. And we setting out to do this, we decided we weren't going to compromise. When we came in, there were a few of the other brewers were sort of dumbing stuff down for the Vietnamese and presuming to know what the Vietnamese would want. For us, it was about, no, we're here to introduce craft beer to Vietnam. So we go with big, bold American flavors. We make pretty much every style known to man. So it's a very different proposition to the local Vietnamese beer. The local Vietnamese beers are all macro beers, right? So you've got your Ba Ba Bars and your Saigon specials. So they're just lagers at the end of the day. We're not, we're ales and stouts and porters and IPAs and all these big beers. So it's night and day. You'll pay probably 30,000 for a local Vietnamese beer. You'll start at around 100,000 for a craft beer. But again, this is why it's so important that it's an experience, right? Because if it's not an experience, why do you pay more? If it's not a flavor experience or an atmosphere experience, why are they going to pay more for it than their local beers, which they love and have been drinking for centuries?
Great, thank you. And I think with that, we can come to the end of this session. Any last words for international brands who are looking to find the right franchise partner? Because we know that Vietnam has a very entrepreneurial culture, and there will be a lot of eager people willing to kind of come in and look at these opportunities. So how do you suggest that they assess the opportunity as well?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, within the sectors, I mean, like join the local chambers and the chambers of commerce. I mean, the chambers here are very, very active and very, very integrated as well. So you'll meet like-minded people there. Find if there's community, like get into the communities, the Facebook communities for the F&B world. The F&B community here is fantastic. It's, I mean, it's just a lovely, lovely tight-knit group of people. There's lots of F&B groups here. Get involved with them. Make sure that you spend some time on the ground here. Get to know people. Get to know out around those people as well. Hear the stories. Find out who's who the players are. It's not a hard scene to crack. We're all pretty much quite open and out there and easy to find. So I would just suggest that. Just start by talking to the F&B scene here and the players here, and give you a guide as to where you want to go, who you want to talk to, who the main players are in those sectors.
Awesome. We do have one last question from the audience.
Sure.
So we have the time for it. We'll go for it. This is basically, what is the biggest personal evolution in your management style since you started doing business here in Vietnam? From Ms. Nguyen Phong.
Wow, that's a great question. My greatest personal evolution. Oh, wow. I think I've sort of, it's, well, 40% of it has been a massive challenge with COVID. I think for me, it's about staying calm in the middle of the firefight. It's about building I've strengthened my team. I think is probably the best thing has been understanding my team, and making sure that I strengthen and build that team more as a family, to get through what we've just got through together. I think I've become a better man manager than I was before, and definitely a much calmer leader in the firefight now than I would have been before. Yeah,
Awesome.
That's a great question, though. I'll keep thinking about that.
Thank you. Oh, we do have one more. This probably will be the last. Another anonymous attendee. What is your take on the tier 2 or tier 3 scene for expansion for HOD?
As in tier 2 cities?
Yes, expanding into other cities outside of Ho Chi Minh and maybe Hanoi.
So we actually wanted to do Hanoi last year, but COVID kind of derailed those plans. So we still plan to do Hanoi next year. This year, I just want to take a break from bricks and mortar because that was very stressful through the last 2 years. And I just sort of want the whole company just to settle and understand the business that we've built, because we grew 20% last year. So I understand what that actually looks like post-COVID. As far as Da Nang goes, we actually took a very good, long, hard look at Da Nang, because that would be the next city after Hanoi. And it's a very interesting market, but what you find in places like Da Nang and the Trang, well, not so much the Trang Pro, Da Nang, where you've got new money. So you've got people who made a lot of money off land and property, right? So, and it's a farming community that basically got very rich very quickly. So contract law doesn't mean much. It's a whole different way of doing business there. Like, they'll want you to pay a year's rent in advance and sign a contract which will not protect you at all, will leave you very, very open to having the entire business taken off you. And make no mistake, if you create a money-making business and the landlord can take that off you in a place like Da Nang, they will take that off you. So you need to be super careful about that, get good contracts in place, watertight contracts. And then it's also like super turbulent, the business there. It's like, it has like 4 or 5 ups, high seasons and low seasons. It just is really, really turbulent. So I think it's case by case. You've really got to look at each region. I mean, like Dalat would be a lot easier as a tertiary city, but again, that would be primarily weekend business, tourism during the high seasons. So you wouldn't get much stability there. So yeah, take a good look at each market by market. Don't assume that there's a blanket rule for all of Vietnam. Like Hanoi is very different to Saigon, and these tertiary cities are less sophisticated in their business approach. So I think that just leaves you more open to risk. And I would advise starting somewhere like Saigon. I mean, this is the F&B capital of Vietnam. It's the more forward-thinking, progressive city of the two, I think. No disrespect to Hanoi, it's just my business experience in the two cities, in all my experience here in Vietnam. I would start here, definitely more open-minded and more business-minded.
Sure. Thank you, John. With that, we come to the end of this session, and we really appreciate the time that you've taken out today.